Welcome to part two of Keep, Loan and Sell. Now we are discussing midfielders. That's my go, isn't it? Wicked.
Yeah. If you want to see part one, it's going to be like here, or just somewhere there.
Uh, who have we got here? Big Les. Loan. Agree, disagree?
I agree, but I'm waiting for some reasoning to see if I have the same reasoning as you. You can't just stick him in a box and go like, "That's what he's doing."
Shout. I like him. I think that the Premier League is a little bit too much for him at the moment. I think he needs a bit more experience. Like, I'd like to see him in the Championship or Bundesliga.
Yeah,
There's certain games where I feel like he's done well, depending on who he's had around him, and I think that's also to do with how those players around him have also played. But the bigger teams that we've played at when he's looked a bit lost, and he's also had a few injuries as well. But
I think he's one that just needs a lot of minutes, and I don't see him getting
yeah,
a lot of minutes at the minute.
no, he's not, and that's what I'm saying. I think if he got a good Championship team
Yeah,
or a semi decent German team in the Bundesliga, I think it would do him the world of good.
yeah.
Caicedo will keep.
Really?
Yeah, well,
Bro, I'm surprised with the amount you slag him off that you've just chucked him straight into keep.
I think it's taking some time for him to settle in. As I said in the last episode, not this, of one of the matches. For me, the only thing that I'm now really kind of getting a little bit cautious about is his range of passing. And I don't like the fact it normally means going backwards just because of how some of the defenders are with playing from the back. But I do think he's improved. I think the three midfielders are working really well together, and it's just a question of them keeping up that momentum and that tempo. He is a good tackler. And yeah, we've spent enough money on him, so we might as well carry on the investment. But yeah, if we were to sell him, we're not going to get the money that we've spent. Like, we're not. So
You never know. Liverpool panic buy post Klopp.
nah, I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll do that. And there's only a few other players. There's only a couple of players that I would ever put in instead of him. But overall, I think he's growing into it, and I think we'll see a different Caicedo at the end of this season than we did at the beginning of this season, and I think that puts us in a really good position for next season.
I just wanted Caicedo to get a chance of getting some praise from you on the pod, so that's good.
No, I knew what you were doing. Don't worry
Let's
about
move on for Enzo, I think.
Enzo. Yeah, same with Enzo. I think he had a bit of a dip this season in the first half, compared to when we bought him this time last year. But I think we're now starting to see the Enzo that we bought originally. And again, I think he's one of those players that plays a certain way, and we've seen the was it the Middlesbrough game when he wanted Mudryk not to cut in as much, and I think it's that part of the game that we're now starting to see paying more dividends from the time that they're playing together. I just like to see him get more goals from outside the box. He's definitely improving on his fitness. He's able to run around the pitch a lot more now. He got to 88th minute against Villa. Normally it was just 60. He's good on the ball. He's not shy to fight for the ball, and to hold the ball up. So yeah, I just want to see a few more goals from him more than anything else. Lavia. Sell.
Jesus. Okay. What do you like about Lavia?
You could maybe argue alone, but I'm not being funny. Like, he's at the moment, it just seems like a waste.
Why?
Well, with Lavia, last season he made 34 appearances for Southampton, and he got one goal. this, I mean, I don't think goals are really his repertoire. To be fair, I'm just saying that he got the one goal.
Mhm.
This season so far, he's made one, and that was coming on in like the 60th, maybe no 70th minute ish in the second half of the game. We were at that game. Can't remember who we were playing against. Um, there's been talks about him, not really putting in the effort with regards to the training and the recovery side of things, which I don't really like to hear. Um, and for me, it's we've bought a player that's injured. I've seen clips of him from when he's playing at Southampton and stuff, but I've not really seen him from those anything where I'm going like wow at. And if the guy's not going to be if the guy isn't putting the effort in to get back fit and training hard, because I've heard Poch has had to have a few words with him about other things to do with just his general mentality and the way he is. Yeah, I just think it's a bit of a waste. I mean, how much did we spend on him again? 50? 54? Something like that?
Just 50.
55? It's just, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if we're going to see him play this season. I don't think he's a player that we should really be looking at putting out on loan. Because he's had enough experience playing football. He's I know he's quite young in age, but I think if he goes out on loan, it just means that he can't be sold at the moment, and we just don't want him at the club. But so for me at the moment, I'd say get rid. I just got a bad vibe about him.
I mean, I don't know what's happened behind the scenes. I don't know what's true and what's not of Poch having to have words with him and what his attitude's like. And if it is the case that he's not putting any effort in and he is a problem child rather than he's just had this niggly injury and therefore hasn't really wanted to risk it too much and maybe has been a bit lackluster in training, trying not to push himself too much because he obviously has had a pretty serious injury and struggled to get back from it. Um, I do think there's a player there, and I think he could be of great help to our team. I think transitionally and the way he takes the ball and can take it past people from midfield is something that we struggle with, and I think Carney can probably do it. But I think the other midfielders that we've got struggle to do that and take the ball in a difficult area, take it round someone and spring an attack. And that's something that he's got in his locker. I would keep him.
When you say like you talk about stuff that you've seen, is that just from when he's at Southampton? Because did you know?
Yeah, he hasn't played for Chelsea, has he?
No,
He's
no, no,
played
no,
one
no. I
season in
know.
the Prem
But
for
what I'm saying,
Southampton.
but what I'm saying is I was about to say, were Southampton? Was it last year that they were in the Premier League? Or were they in the Championship last year? I can't remember. I didn't write that note down.
They're in
Well,
the Prem.
they were in the Prem last year.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with what you're saying about what he can bring to the team in terms of the style of play, and that we don't have many players that do that. I do agree. I just I just feel like you could maybe push it to the summer, but at the moment, I personally, especially the other thing for me is when I look at certain players that we might have to sell to make financial fair play and stuff, I'm going, well, actually, if like I said, that stuff I've read about that's happening behind the scenes is happening, and we're going to lose a player that actually is fit, does put in a shift for the team, that would annoy the hell out of me more than anything else.
But
Um,
for financial fair play, he will cause us more problems if we sell him. We're more
I'm
likely
I'm
to
sure that would
have
be the
to
case.
sell someone else because he's on an 8-year deal. We paid 50 million for him. I can't see us panic selling him now and getting anywhere near 45 million for him. So
No,
that's an
no,
immediate hit, and we end up having to sell more players rather
no, I
to
get what
get
you're
rid of
saying.
him. Then
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, it does make sense to keep him, but I'm sure it's only been the first 6 months. I guess I'm annoyed more probably at the club for buying someone injured, and then the fact that he's literally been injured this entire time. It's another one. I've not seen that much of him, so for me, it's easy for me to kind of go, no, just get rid.
Yeah, I think you give
But
him the benefit of the doubt and
but I
go,
think we would.
it's
I
not
think
really his fault.
no,
Like,
on the grand scheme of
uh,
things, you would probably keep him. But and again, if you're going to tell me actually by getting rid of him, it creates more problems financial fair play wise, and in that case, then I'll probably be going, yeah, all right, we'll have to keep him. But he's
yeah,
on thin ice with me. Really.
yeah, that's fine. And I think he's one that
I concede we'll keep him.
this is where we make sure that we get the fucking best doctors in the world in the club and keep these players on the pitch so we can actually give them a decent go in here and
Would you think about loaning him out, or would you just say no? He needs to stay in the squad when he comes back fully fit. I mean,
I part of me would I would think about it, but it would be a very short consideration on the basis that we just don't have a lot of senior midfielders like centre mids anyway.
we don't have any. But senior wise, depending on what
Well,
you
yeah, fine, but we don't have any like players that have played in first team football in Europe
yeah,
consistently. Um, so it's very difficult to put him out on loan. I think he's one where because he's had serious injuries, you kind of go, well, maybe let's just give him a season out on loan at a club that will play him, give him a fair amount of minutes, but will look after him,
yeah.
like we were trying to do with Loftus Cheek at certain points, and see if he can find some form and then come back in the Chelsea team. But he's not one that I think we need to start week in, week out. And I think he's a good option if we can get him fit and raring to go again. I think he's
Where where do you stand with regards to like we've said about Reece James and Fofana and Chilwell and stuff? Like how long will you give him with the injury situation before you start thinking nah? Or do you think because of financial fair play we're going to have to keep hold of him for a lot longer, even if he is injured the entire time?
he is probably one of the ones where we go. Sometimes these are going to happen with what we've been doing in terms of giving people 8-year contracts, where you kind of go either we've got to grin and bear it or we write our losses off. Um, it's also a position where we've signed a load of these young players, and if one of them does really well out on loan and shows that they're equally as good at doing a job and can stay fit, then I think he loses his place and he goes. But you have to at least give him the first season, especially when he hasn't had a chance and potentially has been rushed back from injury too quickly. It's one that we will never know how much of it is his fault because he's not taking things seriously and how much of it is he's being rushed back when he knows his body, but the club doctors are screwing him over or whatever happens that means he
Yeah,
came
no,
back too
I
quickly.
get it. I just think,
I think you give him at least a season,
yeah, no, it
maybe
is fair.
two,
I agree.
and then
I
you
think I'm just,
reevaluate and go, okay, the bloke's never fit, so it doesn't
well, I'm
work,
just,
and we need to offload somewhere. And this is where you start maybe fudging the lines a little bit and send him off to Strasbourg. But um, as the only club that will probably take him.
yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's just I'm annoyed that we bought an injured player and we've got so many injuries, and it's just everyone keeps hyping him up, and I'm a bit like, really, you know. And then you hear these things, but yeah, that's a fair point. It's only what 6, 7 months in, so we'll give him the first season. Conor Gallagher, and this is another reason why I'm like, oh no, I'll let him go and I'll let that person go, and yeah, we can sell him because I'm like, I want to keep Conor Gallagher. Um, his stats across the top 7 leagues in Europe are insane. The only thing I think is really missing from this guy's game is goals. If I'm brutally honest, I think it's the only thing that's missing from him. Um, and I think that can be worked on. It might be that this season he doesn't get many, but who knows next season. But I'll be furious if we sell him. I'll be absolutely fuming if we sell him. He's been one of our best players for me this season. So, and when you do look at his stats, I mean, I couldn't find them all, but I've seen posts on social media, him versus the top 5 leagues in Europe, and he's like number one on so many things with like passes, winning the ball back. I mean, I've got one here actually. Has one possession in attacking third more times, which is 20, than any other player in Europe's top 7 leagues so far this season. But there's other stats where he's, in the top percentage. for what he brings to the team, and I don't really know how much we would have to pay to bring in someone that does what he does already with his pressing, and I mean he can play 90 minutes doing that.
Mm.
So
I agree, but for probably different reasons. I think he can play all of the roles that we've currently got in that midfield,
yeah,
but to a relatively high level. Whether he remains in the starting 11 when everyone's firing, I don't know, or maybe we need to improve it because I do think we need more goals from midfield,
I
and
agree.
he's the easiest one to drop out.
I'm not saying if we improve, he's also always going to be a starting 11.
Yeah.
I just, regardless of whether he's bench or starting 11 because of injuries or whatnot,
Mm.
he needs to stay.
Yeah. I think, and this is part of the reason I wanted to keep Trev, was keeping players that love the club, want to fight for their place, and can do a decent job in a couple of decent positions is quite helpful. And you're right, to get a Conor Gallagher level replacement in, you're gonna spend
80.
well, maybe not.
If you want goals as well,
Yeah, if you're gonna improve on him, then
that's the only reason
you're
that you
gonna have
do
to
it.
pay a hell of a lot of money. But he's English, he's homegrown, he fills a lot of quotas, and therefore it bumps his price up a little bit. But you're not making more than 10 million off Conor Gallagher and getting a replacement in from some dodgy place somewhere. Because if the bloke's proven in the Premier League, he's immediately 50 million. So it's next to impossible to get one that's a certainty to be able to play at that level in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and
for
I don't
me,
think you get much more than 50 million for Conor Gallagher unless he starts banging in goals.
yeah, with his length of contract as well, for me, he's minimum 50 million. Like
Mm.
I personally think, considering what we've paid for other players and what I've seen other teams spend money on, I personally think he's arguably at least 60, between 60 and 70, because of what he brings. And what's again, if you're gonna just look at, we know he lacks in goals, but I think he's got everything else. Um, that's just like, so when you compare it to other players that we've bought and other teams and how they've spent money, I think 60 million for Connor is fair. But either way, I really don't care how much he's priced at, because there's a lot more players that I would be willing to let go for various reasons to keep him.
Yeah.
Chukwuemeka, I really like him. I was gutted when he got injured. Um, Again, I hope he's coming back, and I just hope he stays fit, because I do think he can offer something. And there's a part of me that thinks that, like you said about what Lavia is supposed to be able to do for us, I look forward to seeing that one day. He can do that. I have seen him do that in some of the earlier games. Um, I really like him. I'd like to see him play in the 10 spot behind the striker, because I think he might better do a job there. But to be honest, I think he's a great player to bring on in centre midfield. When Enzo was struggling with the minutes and could only get to 60, him coming on for half an hour, I thought was actually a really good option. So, like I said, we've not seen an awful lot of him, but what we have seen, I quite like. And again, he needs to stay fit. If he doesn't stay fit, then it's another option. But I can't remember how long his contract is and what that does for financial fair play. But for the moment, I'm definitely saying keep. And hopefully he just gets a few more minutes as he's now coming back from injury. I think
Yeah,
he'll
completely
play.
agree.
I think, huh?
I completely agree. I think Poch has been whinging about us not having enough height in midfield, so I can see him being in the midfield and getting games. I think he's got strength. I think he's got everything to to do well in the Premier League, and he scored a good goal earlier in the season before he got injured.
The West Ham game.
Yeah, before he got injured, like in that same game, and
Yeah,
also
it
was
was,
playing
wasn't
wide
it?
left. I think he can do a job in a number of different roles, and it is. I'm intrigued to know what his best role will end up being in our system. But I think there's a huge ceiling on him, and if he can stay fit, I think he can achieve well, he can play at a very, very high level, and I could see him being in the team for a number of years.
No, I agree. Again, it's for me now. It's just the fitness. He had a big injury. It's just how he recovers from that.
Mm.
That's the only question mark I have over him. Casadei. Yes, I'm actually really glad he's back from loan. I thought he did quite well at Leicester. I mean, when we first bought him, he played 4 games in the under 21s, the under 19s. I can't remember for us, and then he went out on loan to Reading for the rest of the season. And he got 15 appearances, 1 goal, and then in the first half of the season for Leicester, he's played 25 games in all competitions and scored 3 goals. I really liked him in pre-season. I actually didn't want him to go out on loan. I really wanted him to stay in the starting 11. He is cup tied, so he can't play, the League Cup final, and he can't play in the FA Cup. But I feel like he can definitely do a job for us and help the team out in some way. I think he could be a bit of a game changer. Not necessarily starting every game, but I think he's a good option to bring on in the second half against certain teams to give the like Enzo and Gallagher maybe a break if they need it. But I've always been really impressed with him. So yeah, for me, he's a keep. I don't want him to go back out on loan. I'd actually like him to stay because I want him to stay at the beginning of the season. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think at the start of the season, out of the two of them, Santos was the one that I wanted to keep around, and obviously
Yeah,
they
you
both
did.
went out on loan, and Casadei's actually gone out and achieved something, and Santos just hasn't been able to get in that Forest team. From the sounds of it, it doesn't look like the manager was particularly bothered about having him. So it's a bit of a weird one, and I think Chelsea have kind of caught that one up big time. I do. Again, he's good in the air. They actually have a lot of similar qualities between Casadei and Santos. They're both good in the air, score goals with headers. From the highlights that I've seen of Casadei playing for Leicester, there's a player there. He seems to have put on a fair bit of size as well since he's come to England, whereas
Oh,
he was quite string beanie when he first came, and he's filled out a lot, which
yeah, he
is
has.
probably just partly an age thing because he is 18, 19, I think.
He's
So
19.
he is still growing.
Well, wasn't he like the player of the tournament at the under 19 World Cup when we bought him?
I think so.
Yeah, well, he's 18, 19 regardless. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm quite happy to have him back. I completely forgot again that it was cup tied and was slightly annoyed he didn't get any minutes against
Villa.
Aston Villa. It's like, what's the fucking point of bringing this bloke back if he's not going to fucking play? But it was cup tied, so
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
explains that one. Um, yeah, look, I think we need more, especially if Ugachukwu is going to go out on loan. We need slightly more coverage in that area. I know Chukwuemeka's coming back as well, but yeah, I
But
think five midfielders to play 3 positions. I know you can put Palmer in there as well at a push, but I
I
think
mean, I wouldn't, and that's the thing.
it doesn't
I
really
I
work.
I don't want Palmer in centre midfield.
No, you can play the number 10,
You
but
could
I
do
do
it,
think we
but
lose
yeah,
something in the midfield in the dominance of the midfield because I don't. He's not an elite presser. He is very good at intercepting the ball, and I think that
yeah.
causes you slight problems when you're in a midfield battle. I think if you've got someone that's trying to intercept the ball rather than trying to win it off someone, I think you end up losing the battle in the midfield a little bit.
Yeah.
But when he's playing out wide and he drifts inside a little bit, and no one's expecting him to be there, and he intercepts the ball, it works really well.
No, I
So
agree.
yeah, I think
I just
having
think I
Matt
also think
around
that
is good. I want to
we've
see him
lacked.
play.
Well, I just go on.
It's difficult because I haven't seen enough of him in a Chelsea shirt with the other Chelsea players to know is he going to be up to speed and is he going to be able to pass the ball around, and he's going to basically have a lot of the time at least 9 men in front of him and probably 2 strikers that are trying to nick the ball off him, or like a striker trying to nick the ball off him
Yeah, I
when he's
mean,
in that midfield. So
I
it'll be
thought.
interesting. I want to see him play, and I'm not upset that he's a keep.
Well,
But
out of all of them, he was the one that I wanted to keep the most. In
yeah,
terms of the ones that we're talking about pre-season, the youngsters that we bought, and he was the one that I wanted to keep the most. I was
Mm,
so impressed with him. I thought his oh, what am I looking for? What's the phrase? Temperament on the ball. He's strong. He likes to run with it. He's a big lad. I think he's a little bit bigger than Santos, like height wise, and obviously he's
I
now
think
filled
so.
out. Um, I think he's a total midfielder. I mean, normally we had him playing a bit deep, but he can push forward if we want to. I just think he offers a lot of options because I do think he's good on the ball. Um,
And from the sounds of it, he's a goal threat as well, which is
yeah,
something we need in midfield.
it's
I
an
mean,
extra
maybe
bit of height in the box.
not for Reading, but or not for Leicester, but obviously top score. I think he was top scorer in that, won the
Yeah,
Golden Boot and got best player in that
he
tournament.
was. He dominated it. We were very lucky to get him.
I think
So
we got him just before it and then let him play in it.
maybe
Or
there
maybe
was a
that's
few clubs
Santos.
going for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right because that's why I started paying attention because I was like that's why I started paying attention to that tournament because we bought him.
Mm,
Yeah. But I think he's got a lot to offer, and I think for this next 6 months it could be really interesting because one of the things that has really frustrated me about our team, and it's probably one of the reasons why I've been frustrated with Lavia as well, is just we've not had a lot of rotation in midfield. So I feel like we've had injuries, and then we've had sometimes just not had enough like actual central midfielders to play, or they've been playing a little bit injured because Enzo had the hernia. So I'm quite glad we just got a couple more players coming back from injury with Chukwuemeka. He's now going to be here, so it's an extra body. So it just a nice bit of rotation, and it gives people a bit more breaks because I just feel like something that's an area we've really struggled in to rotate the squad
mm.
compared to
Yeah, I agree.
the defense where we bought Dizazi. Granted, he's had to play right back, it's not his position, but we've had a few more players that we can shift around and make it work a bit more. Whereas I feel like a lot of the time it was Gallagher, Enzo, and Caicedo, and then if one was injured, you bring in Big Les, and Big Les got injured. You then had to bring Palmer into the number 10,
Midfield.
which I mean, it's just yeah. Um, Santos, I like him. I wouldn't have a problem with him staying, but I would like to see him go. I would probably say go out on loan,
Yeah.
just because I think having six players might be a bit too much.
Well, yeah, and I think him going out on loan to Leicester because they've obviously got a hole now wouldn't be the worst
No,
idea in the world
exactly.
if we can get him to an English club. I think getting minutes in the Championship's better than him trying to force his way in the Premier League. I think he does have the ability, but yeah, I think a little bit of time
I
in.
like him. I like him. Like I said, for me, if I had to choose between, it was like the pre-season, you had to choose between Casado and Santos. And I feel like we're
Mm,
now at that same point again where it's like we've brought Casado back, but Santos has also come back because his loan wasn't working, whereas
yeah,
Casado did. So yeah, for me, I'm still edging more towards Casado, but I don't think Santos is a bad player. So, but I think he would benefit from playing in the Championship, and like you said, there's a hole at Leicester. So Lewis Hall probably edging to
mm,
sell.
fair.
Do you disagree?
I just quite like the bloke. It's difficult. I do just quite like him, and I would stick him as a backup left back, but it massively depends how much money we can get for him. Because obviously we're wangling towards buying a top quality striker. We've spent £1 billion. So unfortunately, some of these homegrown players are probably going to have to leave if we can get reasonable money for them. And I thought 28 million for him wasn't a particularly bad deal,
No.
but it doesn't feel like that's going to go through now. And then you kind of look at if we're only getting 15 million for him, I'm starting to think, oh, maybe he's just a better squad option, and we're better off trying to sell Kukurea and Matson and keep Lewis Hall as a left
But
back option.
Cucurella and Matson are already in. This is what I'm saying. Cucurella and Matson are already in that sell column, and
Yeah,
so
which is why I'm saying that Lewis Hall, maybe we if the option is there, maybe we keep him if he wants to stay. I don't think it would have been a him throwing his toys out the pram trying to leave. I think it was a decent option, and he saw the amount of players that we're bringing in and just thought I probably got a better chance at Newcastle.
yeah,
Um,
no, I do think you're right with that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, I I'm edging towards with this lot as it is, rather than trying to buy a left back, keeping him. But yeah, I'm not against the sell
I
if
mean,
at
to be
the
fair,
right price, and the right price isn't that high.
I mean, we are. I feel like I'm shooting myself. Well, we are shooting ourselves in the foot, but left back wise, we are now leaving ourselves pretty thin. Although Gusto can play there, I do think we need a better left back. I wouldn't. I don't have any real issues with Hall staying and playing as a backup left back. My only concern is if Chilwell does, hypothetically speaking, if Chilwell was to get injured again and Hall was our only option, is that a good enough option
But when
for
you've got Gusto as the first backup,
fair? But then also with midfielders, from what I've seen, I'd probably still have Chukwuemeka, Casadei, and probably Santos over him. From what I've seen, I could be wrong. I've not seen that much of Hall, but from the preseason and what I have seen of Hall playing for us as well in last season and in Newcastle, that's
I
that's what
I
I've put in
wouldn't
there.
sell him for 15 mil. If it's more than 15 mil, I'd probably say yes.
I think 20 is the bare minimum, if I'm brutally honest. I think 20,
I,
I don't think 20 is a bad shout for any party involved. 28 sounds lush. So does 30. But yeah, I think between 20 and 30 mil, we're singing. I think 15 mil is probably a bit cheap in today's market. But you wouldn't have them in your sell column.
I mean, let's stick him in there. I mean, basically, all the sales are if the value's right.
Well, of course it
I think,
is. But
yeah,
that's any real business. But a
I
lot of
think
that
I,
comes down to the
I think
financial
I
fair
agree
play,
with
I'm
you
sure.
that we need a better left back than that. If Chilwell's going to be injured all the time, and he's not just a backup, so yeah, probably sell makes more sense. But I don't like selling the homegrown ones.
No, I agree. But then again, I know that selling Connor is the easiest way for us to make that money back. But I'm not being funny. At this point in time, I don't think we can really do that. I think that really harms our team. So
Yeah,
I'm looking for other areas. And for me, as much as I think that left back area needs work, as much as I like Chilwell, I don't think Cucurella is good enough. Matson's there's something going on there. Hall, I don't think is good enough to play there if Chilwell's out for a long time. Granted, Gusto can play there for sure, but then we don't have proper cover at the right back because Dizazi's also in the sell column. So yeah, the left back area for me is an area that I want us to improve on, but at the same time, so striker. And I'd also just want to avoid at all costs selling Gallagher.
fair.
Because unless we know that we're going to get someone in, I just don't think it works. I think selling Gallagher without bringing someone else in doesn't work. And people turning around to me saying, "Well, Lavia will do it," and I'm like, he's not fit. Like that's probably another reason why I get so angry about Lavia because I'm
But
just like,
your
well,
boy
maybe he can do
Casadei,
it, but huh?
boy Casadei that you rate so highly, he might come in and do it.
That's true, but I don't think he's got the same. I don't think he's got the same kind of emphasis on the press that Gallagher's got as of yet. But I like Cassidy. Right, that brings the S to the end of part two of midfielders. Share your comments below. Like, share, subscribe, follow, notification button. Hope you're liking this little mini series that we're doing. And yeah, stay tuned for the third part, which is forwards. Thank you all for watching.